Imagine this for a moment. You are drifting into sleep, your breath slowing, your body sinking deeper into the mattress. And suddenly, you feel as if that final breath you just released was your very last in this world. You open your eyes again, but you are no longer in your familiar room. Instead, you find yourself standing on the shore of a vast and silent river. Its waters are black as obsidian, stretching endlessly into the shadows. All around you, countless figures wait in silence, kings and beggars, heroes and criminals, mothers and children, all reduced to the same quiet stillness, all awaiting the same passage. Before you, a solitary boat rests against the bank. Its ferryman does not speak, his hollow eyes fixed only on the endless flow of souls. No one dares to move ahead of the others. No one is special here. In this place, there are no crowns, no riches, no victories, no excuses. There is only the quiet hush of eternity pressing in on every side. And here is the unsettling thought. Beneath the ground of your own city, beneath the streets and homes you pass each day, lie the bones of those who once lived and laughed, who once dreamed of the light just as you do, but who, in the end, stood on this very same shoreline. They too once felt the warmth of fire, the sweetness of bread, the laughter of children, and yet here they arrived, to wait, like all others, before the unyielding ferryman. Tonight, we will follow them. Together, we will descend into the realm of Hades. We will walk through its gates, feel the chill of its rivers, hear the whispers of ancient souls, and glimpse the hidden order that governs the land of the dead. And as we journey, you may discover why, even in the deepest darkness, human beings have always searched for a glimmer of hope. So now, close your eyes. Breathe in slowly, deeply. Let the weight of the world fall away. Allow me to guide you into a place where time itself stands still. The darkness around you is not the darkness of night. It is deeper, heavier, as though the air itself has turned to shadow. You take a careful step forward, and beneath your feet, the ground feels cool and uneven. The stone is damp, slick with the constant breath of underground waters. Ahead stretches a cavern, vast yet confined, its ceiling hidden in the black above. Drops of water fall from unseen heights, their echo stretching far into the hollow space. Each drop lands with a delicate splash, as if the entire cave were breathing slowly with you. The air is thick with the scent of the earth, ancient, damp, and mineral. There is the sharp tang of stone freshly broken, the mustiness of soil long hidden from the sun, and somewhere, faintly, the bitter trace of ash, as if a distant fire had burned here centuries ago and left only a memory in the air. You breathe it in, and it fills your chest with a strange heaviness, grounding you more firmly in this place. Listen closely. Beneath the rhythm of falling water, you can hear it, the hushed murmur of a river. It does not rush like the streams of the living world. Instead, it flows with a low, endless sigh, the sound of time itself moving slowly past. Now and then, a hollow reverberation breaks the stillness, the faint echo of footsteps. Whose footsteps they are, you cannot tell. Perhaps they belong to those who have walked before you, perhaps to those who will come after. Your skin tingles as the temperature shifts. The further you move, the cooler the air becomes. It presses gently against your arms and face, a cool veil wrapping you in its embrace. You reach out, and your hand grazes the rough wall of the cavern. The stone is slick and cold, as though the very bones of the earth are sweating in silence. Beneath your feet, the texture changes. The hard stone softens into sand, fine and damp. It yields slightly under your weight, like a quiet invitation to step deeper. Each movement is slow, deliberate. Each sound you make seems amplified by the cavern, then swallowed instantly by the immensity of the silence that follows. Now, imagine this. You are not lying on the softness of your bed. You are resting upon a slab of stone within an ancient temple. Around you, the air trembles with the memory of forgotten prayers. Your eyes drift shut, and instead of the silence of your room, you hear the trickle of hidden waters, carrying whispers from a world beyond. This is no longer your time. This is another realm, a threshold where the living and the dead once met. The glow of your world has dimmed, replaced by the flickering light of torches that never burn out. Their flames reveal little, only glimmers of damp walls, only hints of distant arches carved into rock. Shadows move across the walls, but they move too slowly to be your own. You are not alone here, yet there is no fear in their presence, only a gentle reminder that others too are making this same passage. You close your eyes again for a moment, and the sounds sharpen. The drip of water, the murmur of the river, the sigh of stone expanding in the weight of the earth. Together, they weave a lullaby older than humanity itself. You are listening not to noise, but to the steady pulse of the underworld, its eternal rhythm carrying you forward. Breathe deeply. Feel how the air clings, how its heaviness slows your heart. With each inhalation, you are sinking further from the world of light, descending step by step into a place where time has no meaning. And still, the river calls to you. You wake to the hush of the black river, to the gentle press of cool air on your cheeks, to the feel of damp sand giving slightly under your heels. Your armor is gone. The weight that once bit into your shoulders has been lifted as if by kind hands. Only the memory of bronze remains, a faint echo of metal along your skin, a ghost of leather straps, the round pull of a shield that is no longer there. Above you, there is no sky, only a long, slow darkness that behaves like stone. Before you, the water gleams, not with stars, but with a dim, patient sheen, as if the river were breathing. You know the name of this place in a way you cannot explain. Styx, the elders called it, the boundary where oaths are heavier than iron and promises cannot break. You are one among many on its shore. The figures around you do not jostle or press. They stand with the quiet courtesy of those who have nothing left to prove. Kings without crowns, farmers without tools, boys without laughter, elders without staffs, and you, an ordinary man whose spear once shook in the morning light. You look down at your hands. They are clean, but you remember how they were, scarred by rope and reed, darkened by sun and olive oil, nicked where bronze met skin. Your right palm remembers the shaft of a spear, the smooth place worn by practice, the loop of leather at the wrist. Your left remembers the curve of a shield rim, the way the forearm ached after hours beneath it, the way it made you feel both protected and pinned to your fate. The battle returns in pieces, not like thunder, but like quiet seas that rise and fall. Morning. The dust rising from many feet, the smell of sweat and resin, of wool and oil, sunlight catching on a forest of spearheads until the whole world looked made of fire. You remember the song a boy started, a high, unsteady note to keep fear away, and how the veterans smiled and joined him, not to drown the fear, but to give it a place to sit. You remember the first running steps when the line moved as one, your breath sinking to the world's long drum, your hope threaded tightly to those beside you. You remember, too, the space inside the helmet, how the world narrowed to a slit and your thoughts ran like water along a channel. The shock of wood on wood, bronze on bronze. The low, dense sound of impact, like doors closing in a deep house. You do not remember falling. You remember a sudden widening, a sensation of being lifted, and the odd, tender thought that someone, perhaps your father, had finally taken the shield off your arm. Then the world grew very large and very soft, and the hot taste of iron on your tongue faded into cool, clear air. Now, on this shore, you swallow. There is something small and round beneath your tongue. A coin, thin and cold, placed there by hands you loved. A promise in metal. You think of them, the ones who washed your body, who laid you out with olive leaves and small sprigs of rosemary, who closed your eyes and spoke your name so that it would not be lost in the wind. You feel, with a tenderness that does not bruise, the roughness of your mother's fingers as she brushed your hair, the trembling of your brother's breath, the way your child pressed their face against your shoulder the last evening by the hearth. You see the courtyard of your home as if the river itself were a polished mirror. The fig tree with its milky stems, the clay jar with a crack running down one side like a lightning bolt, the low bench where your wife mended, needle flashing like a small star. You remember the dark sweetness of grapes in late summer, the sting of wine when it was young and wild, the way the city sounded during festivals when flutes and laughter braided into one long ribbon. You remember the smell of wet stone after winter rain and the high rasp of cicadas in the afternoon heat, how their relentless music made the sun seem even larger. You were not a hero. You were simply someone who tried to do what was asked. You stood in line because your father had stood there once, and because the men who built your street stood there now, and because the older man beside you pressed his shoulder to yours and whispered, very simply, together. You were brave sometimes, and sometimes you were only stubborn. You prayed to the gods, and sometimes you argued with them. You loved the taste of bread dipped in oil, the noise of the marketplace, the shy smile of your child when you spun them in your arms. You had doubts that lived in you quietly, like small birds under the rafters, and hopes that flared bright and died down and flared again, like coals in the brazier. On the riverbank, a boat slides out of the dark. It does not bump the shore so much as arrive, as if shore and boat were old friends who needed no greeting. The ferryman stands in it, wrapped in something that is not quite cloth and not quite shadow. His oar is long and smooth, the wood pale where many hands have touched it and left no stain. His face is not cruel, only patient, and in his patient gaze you feel time stretch and soften until it is more like sleep than waiting. He does not call your name. Names, it seems, are less important here, where each person is simply what they have always been, beneath the noise. A breath, a story, a set of promises made and kept as best they could be. He looks at you and then away, in the rhythm of someone who has seen the sun rise too many times to marvel at it, and still, somehow, respects the light. You step closer, and the sand accepts your weight with a faint sigh. You think of the coin under your tongue, and of those who cross without one. Your chest tightens, then loosens, as if an unseen hand had touched your heart, not to test it, but to calm it. You are afraid, yes, not with the sharp fear of falling, but with the slow, unsteady fear of opening a door you cannot close again. You wonder whether you are a good man. You do not know how to measure it. You count in your mind small things. The time you led a neighbor's donkey home when it wandered loose. The time you lied and then returned to say you had lied. The time you gave a fig to a boy who had none. The time you burned with anger and then let the anger pass like a summer thundercloud without climbing into it. Around you, the others step forward in their own time. A woman presses her lips together once, as if tasting a last sweetness. An old man smooths the air where his staff would be, then lets his hands fall open. A boy looks up, searching for a sky that is not here, then nods to himself, satisfied with whatever he finds in the darkness. No one hurries anyone else. Patience is the only wealth the shore recognizes. The ferryman's boat draws level with you. The wood smells faintly of river reed and distance, the way old houses smell faintly of every meal ever cooked inside them. The ferryman's hands rest loosely on the oar. He nods. Not permission, not command, simply acknowledgement. There you are. Here we are. You touch your tongue to the coin. It is colder now. You lift it between thumb and forefinger, and the act feels at once intimate and public, like untying a knot in a crowded square. You do not know the proper words. You have heard many versions of them in the marketplace, in the baths, among men who argued and laughed with equal ease. Some said payment should be offered without looking up. Some said you should meet the ferryman's gaze to show you are not ashamed of your life. You do what is easiest. You hold out your open palm, coin shining dimly, head bowed not from fear, but from the softness that has come over you like evening. The ferryman takes the coin. His fingers are neither warm nor cold. They are simply there, capable and spare, like tools that have lasted through generations. He weighs the coin without looking at it, or perhaps he measures something else. The weight of your breath, the steadiness of your stance, the way your memories sit within you without flinching. Come, he says, or perhaps he says nothing, and the river says it for him. The word is gentle either way. You step into the boat. The river rocks and then is still, the way a cradle rocks when a hand releases it. You sit upon a low plank polished by countless soles, and your body discovers its balance without effort, as if it has been practicing for this moment in every nap you ever took after work, in every quiet minute you stole for yourself in the shade of the fig tree. The ferryman pushes off. The shore does not recede so much as soften into the dark, and the dark itself becomes less a place and more a sound, the thick hush of water moving where earth allows it. You breathe, in through the nose, slow, out through the mouth, slower. The oar dips and rises, dips and rises. Each stroke lays down a steadying beat. You think, not with words, but with the image of your home, of mornings when your wife lit the small lamp before dawn, when bread seemed more fragrant because it was still mostly an idea and not yet a meal. You think of the time you mended a cracked amphora with pitch, your child watching, your fingers black and sticky, your laughter easy as the resin reluctantly obeyed your will. You think of your father's voice telling a story about a hero not to teach you how to be great, but how to be kind when greatness is not at hand. Doubt drifts in, small and inevitable. Did you waste time? Did you waste love? You let the questions be questions. Here, they do not insist. They arrive like birds, and they leave like birds. You remember that you almost did not go to battle, that for one long, confused afternoon, you wanted to run to the hills and hide among the goats until everyone forgot your name. You did not run. You also did not become a legend. You stood where you were put, shoulder to shoulder, and when fear climbed your throat, you swallowed it with a joke, a tune, a breath. You were not perfect. You were, however, present. The river seems to approve of this. Its surface wrinkles in a way that looks like a smile, and then it smooths itself again in quiet pride. Across the water, something like a gate suggests itself. It is not a door with hinges and bars, but a change in the quality of the dark, the way sea and sky separate at night, although both are black. You feel the pull of it, the way sleepers feel the pull of deeper sleep when the house grows still. You are not in a hurry. The ferryman is not either. His strokes have the cadence of a poem recited by heart, each line falling into the next, each pause a promise that nothing important will be skipped. Do you remember your first sandals? A voice in you asks, and you almost laugh at the strangeness of the thought, and yet you do. The scratch of new leather, the way your mother's hand guided the strap, the patient ceremony of a small beginning. You remember the first time you cut yourself shaving and decided that blood was not as frightening as the stories said. You remember a day in a field when a dragonfly hovered near you, its wings making a sound so small you almost mistook it for your own breath. You remember holding a tiny bird that fell from a nest and how it trembled like a solar flare caught in your hands, and how you put it back and walked away without waiting to learn whether it had lived. The ferryman says nothing, and in his silence you hear an old wisdom that is kinder than any speech. He will take you where you need to go. He will not ask you to defend your life. That is for others later, perhaps. For now, there is only the crossing, the way a child must cross a room to reach a sleeping mat, the way a farmer must cross a field to reach an olive tree. The work is in the stepping. The rest is given. You think of those who could not place a coin beneath your tongue, the poor, the forgotten, the ones whose bodies lay far from home where friends could not find them. You wonder who ferries them, who speaks their names. The river answers with a soft shiver against the hull, and you understand, without understanding, that no one is left standing on the shore forever. The world is too gentle for that, even in its most mysterious places. Your fear, which had the size of a man when you first stood on the sand, shrinks to something you can hold on your palm. It is no longer a storm, but a small cloud to shade your eyes. You close those eyes for a moment. The oar knocks once against the boat, a hollow, reassuring sound, and then slides back into the water. You breathe again, in, outside. You are not disappearing. You are being carried. When you open your eyes, the near shore has become only a notion, and the far shore has become a suggestion. You do not feel lost. You feel between, which is where all journeys are truest. You lift your hands and study them once more. You see the place where a ring used to sit, warmed by skin, and the faint lighter band it left. You see a new calmness in them, as if they had finally been allowed to set down what they were holding. The ferryman looks at you briefly, and in that glance he seems to see you as you were at every age, a boy running with a stick, a youth learning to braid rope, a man laughing so hard his knees gave out, a father radiant with a pride that embarrassed him. He nods again, and you understand that he honors the ordinary as sacred. The river, too, honors it. bringing each reflection to the surface without judgment. A courtyard, a fig, a cracked jar, a bench, a needle, a smile. The boat glides. The underworld's air has its own scent, not rot, as the living fear, but the steady perfume of wet stone and cooled ash, of earth turned in winter so it can bloom again in spring. You let that scent fill you. You let it slow you. Thought by thought, the world that loosens its hold, not out of cruelty, but out of love. Your life is not being taken from you. It is being set gently on a shelf where it can be admired and learned from, where its few bright colors and many quiet shades can be seen clearly. The gate, or the change that is like a gate, grows closer. Somewhere beyond it, the judges will sit, and you will stand before them with the steady heart you have now, the heart that has finally learned how to be simple. But for this moment, there is only the quiet company of the ferryman, the rocking of the river, the coolness on your face, and the knowledge, stronger than fear, that you are part of something wide and careful. You lay your palm on the plank beside you. The wood is smooth and slightly ridged, like the inside of an old shell. You find the rhythm of the oar and match your breath to it. In, oar dips. Outside, oar lifts. In, oar dips. Outside, oar lifts. You could do this forever, you think. Not cross exactly, but be carried. And the thought brings not impatience, but a deep sigh of relief. You do not know how long the crossing takes. Time here behaves like a friend who knows you are tired. It slows its voice, softens its steps, waits at the door until you are ready. When the boat at last brushes something that is not water, it does so with a softness that feels like blessing. The ferryman steadies the hull with a small pressure of his foot. He does not offer his hand. He does not need to. You stand, and you do not sway. Here, he says, and the word is so kind that you feel your doubts lift like birds at dawn. You step onto the new shore. The sand here is finer, almost silk, and cool as deep shade. Behind you, the boat is already part of the water again, and the ferryman is part of the boat, and the river is part of the dark, and all of it is part of a pattern that does not tangle. You do not look back, not because you are forbidden, but because you are ready. Your breath is steady. Your heart is a small, bright lamp held carefully in two hands. Ahead, a path leads inward, where voices are not loud but true, where your story will be listened to the way a mother listens to a child, with attention, with patience, with love. You have arrived at the place between judgment and rest, at the threshold where the ordinary is honored and the simple is enough. You stand there calmly, the river's lull still rocking through your bones, your doubts folded like cloth and set aside. And as the first quiet figure approaches out of the dark, not at all frightening, only formal, like a friend come to guide you through a ceremony, you realize that fear has forgotten your name and peace has learned to speak it. The path bends inward, and the dark takes on the shape of an entrance. Not a door with hinges, but an idea made stone. Two towering pillars of black rock, veined with a dull sheen like cooled lightning, and between them a threshold that seems to breathe. Cypress and poplar stand in a quiet rank to either side, their leaves barely stirring, as if even the trees have agreed to speak softly here. Beyond the opening, something vast waits, not hostile, not welcoming, simply prepared, the way the sea is prepared for every river that reaches it. You pause and let your breath lengthen. In, slow. Outside, slower. The The sand is silk under your feet now, curving gently toward the gates. They do not clang. They do not flare. They present themselves with the courtesy of a host who has opened their house to a long-expected guest. At the base of each pillar are small carvings, smoothed by time, hands in blessing, eyes half closed, a pattern of waves. You cannot read the script, and you do not need to. Your body understands. Enter as you are. Leave your noise behind. On the lintel, faint as a memory, you sense the names people have given this place. Some spoken in fear, some in awe, some in the practical tone of those who lay coins carefully beside a loved one's mouth. Hades, the house of many, the unseen country. You step through, and the air deepens. A low, steady sound rises, somewhere between a purr and a drum. At first, you think it is the river continuing its patient hymn, but the rhythm resolves into breath. 3 breaths braided into one. In the half-light, a shape uncoils with the sweet heaviness of a dog waking from sleep. 3 heads lift, as if 3 separate moons had decided to rise at once. The eyes are not cruel. They are old and clear and calm. This is Cerberus, the guardian of the boundary, the gentle enormity who keeps order not with rage, but with attention. Each head turns in harmony with the others. One tilts a fraction toward the boat you have left. One attends to the passage ahead, and one studies you with the curiosity of a creature who recognizes the scent of olive oil and sun and human worry. There is nothing theatrical here. No roaring, no bared teeth. When Cerberus stands, the ground hums. When he breathes, the air smells faintly of cool stone and river reed. A chain glints at his neck, not to bind, but to remind, a loop of duty more than iron. You bow your head without planning to. Cerberus inclines one of his, and it feels, oddly, like being blessed by a gate itself. You pass, the space between one slow blink and the next, and the dog lowers himself again, curls tail to paw, and returns to listening to the threshold. The keeper of arrivals, the keeper of return. It occurs to you that in the living world, dogs do the same. They lie by doors, and they know who is coming long before footsteps reach the house. Beyond the guardian, the land unfolds in deliberate layers, as if the underworld were a city built by patience. The nearest is a broad plain under a high, dim sky, a meadow of pale asphodels whose petals glow like moon turnings. The flowers nod without breeze, as though they move to the rhythm of passing thought. Here, most souls wander in a quiet way. They are not lost. They are unhurried. They talk in low voices, if they talk at all. And when they fall silent, the silence is companionable. You stand at the edge of the meadow and see them. Kings without their gold, generals without their crests, merchants without their tall accounts, sailors without the pull of rope, potters without wheel or clay. Children run as they always run, not fast, but with the intention of running. And when they fall, they look around with an expression that says, "Ah, yes, this again," and then they sit and watch the flowers. Elders stroll, hands clasped in the small of their backs, pausing to point out something that cannot be seen but can be felt. A coolness, a flavor in the air, a memory that has ripened. Here, in the asphodel meadow, rank has no function. The body's old negotiations, beauty, age, strength, coin, have been set gently to the side. What remains has a different weight. You see a woman who once measured out grain with careful fingers sit beside a man who once spoke to thousands from a marble platform. They listen to the same story told by a fisher, and the fisher speaks not to be believed, but to keep the world stitching itself together in words. Nearby, a boy shows an elder how to whistle through his teeth, failing, trying again, failing, then laughing until both of them are laughing. The laughter is quiet, like water over small stones. From time to time, a procession passes along a path worn soft by many feet. The line is orderly, not militarily so, but like an audience taking their seats with the gentle thrill of a ceremony about to begin. At the head of the path, there is a place of judgment, and all who enter here will eventually come to it. A hall, not of splendor, but of clarity, open to the slow-moving sky, with 3 seats spaced in a crescent. The seats are not thrones. They are chairs, carved with the designs of nets, scales, and braids, work done by hands that knew work well. The judges are already present. Minos, calm as a harbor at dawn, the weight of many stories settled into his gaze. Rhadamanthus, exact and listening, the sort of man who can hear whether a promise was made from pride or from love. And Aeacus, solid and grave, who knows the smell of rain before it comes and the shape of a good boundary. They are not severe the way statues are severe. They are attentive the way grandfathers are attentive when a child speaks. They do not glower. They consider. Their questions are not traps. They are lamps set along a path. Souls step forward when they are ready. There is no rush. A woman comes, hands folded, and speaks about a quarrel that lasted 2 winters and ended with a shared loaf. A man tells how he kept a small shrine to a god because it pleased his wife to see the lamp lit. Another admits a theft from a neighbor, a theft repaired, and what he learned from the heat of shame turned into something gentler. The judges listen for truth's temperature, for whether facts arrive with the light they claim to carry. Sometimes they consult quietly among themselves, not to decide a punishment, but to decide a direction. The way farmers consult a map of canals to guide water where fields most need it. From the hall, if you look left, you glimpse a far, shining verge, the Elysian Fields. It is a light you do not have to squint against, a warmth that does not press. Wind moves there in a braided pattern, carrying scents that belong to every season at once: ripe grain and fresh rain, sea salt and wine, laurel and clean wood smoke. In that distance, you see figures moving with the ease of those whose work is joy. A poet reciting softly to an attentive friend, an athlete teaching a child to throw without the clatter of competition, a mother and a son walking a path that seems to lead both out and in at the same time. Music lives there, not performance, but the kind of music hands make when they are sure of their craft. The rasp of a plane across wood, the thrum of a loom, the sigh of a flute played for its own contentment. If you look right, the ground slopes away into something like depth, folded upon depth, a shadow with a structure. That is Tartarus, but what reaches you where you stand is only its echo, not screams, not torment, only a reminder like thunder far behind mountains that some patterns must be corrected where they began. The punished are not theater here. No one is exhibited for instruction. What is done there is done out of sight, the way a surgeon works behind a curtain so that the work can be careful and the patient can return whole if returning is part of their story. Yet, even from afar, you understand certain names because the world above loved to tell them. Sisyphus, pushing his stone not in spectacle, but in a rhythm he has learned to meet with breathing, in, lean, out, release, as if the task were a mirror that finally taught him how to see himself. Tantalus, no longer frantic, learning in patient sips what hunger is, for when it is not punishment. Attention, gratitude, proportion. You feel, and this surprises you, not horror, but a tenderness for the exactness at work there. A correction is not a cruelty when it is paired with a chance to become simple. Between the shining verge and the deep shadow flows the life of the underworld like a slow, clear river of people. Ambassadors who once moved armies now move gently through conversations. Shepherds who once could track a sheep by a tuft of wool on a thorn show princes how to read a path by touch, and the princes listen, relieved to be taught by someone who is glad to teach. A builder crouches and sketches a perfect arch with his finger in the dust. A queen kneels beside him, fascinated by the way a curve can hold weight. A slave explains the quickest way to split a pomegranate without wasting a single jewel. 3 philosophers murmur appreciation and then agree they have learned something new. Here, no one eats alone unless they wish to. Meals are small and ceremonial, slices of fruit that taste like mornings you thought you had forgotten. Flatbread warm as a hand, olives with their precise bitter music, water that tastes like rain on clean stone. People share what they have without keeping count, because there is nothing to count. Trade continues, but what moves between hands is not property. It is knowledge, care, time. A potter who never found the right clay above teaches a child how to hear the difference in coolness with their palm. The child will teach someone else later how to make a knot that holds without cutting. From time to time, the judge's hall sends a hush across the meadow, a kindly hush, like the one that gathers at a bedside before a blessing. Those who are called to speak do so. Those who have spoken drift away lighter, as if the truth, once said, becomes a lantern that does not need to be carried. Some souls are directed toward Elysium, not because they were larger than others, but because their love, well tended, grew into a garden that can feed many. Others are invited to remain in the meadow, where reflection is its own craft. A few are sent to the deeper shadow to help repair a warp in the world's fabric from the inside out. It is not the crude sorting of worth. It is the careful assignment of a next wise step. You walk among the crowds, and every face seems both strange and dear. There is a young woman with calluses on her fingers from years at the loom. There is a soldier with a posture still attentive to commands that will never be given again. There is an old fisherman whose beard has become a map of rivers. You hear snippets of many languages, and yet you understand them all, not word by word, but intent by intent. Here, understanding is a common table. A joke told by a mason from a far island earns laughter from an astronomer who never learned to lay a stone. The humor is simply this: the world is the same under both their hands. You notice that names are used differently here. People still have them, but they are not badges. They are tools for attention. You hear someone whisper, "Minos will see me," and someone else answer, "You will see yourself." A child asks, "Will I forget my mother?" And an elder says, "You will remember her the way bread remembers the fire that baked it, by being good to those who are hungry." The child accepts this without sadness. Acceptance is the natural climate. Far along one path, a thin stream glints. Not the Styx this time, but the Lethe, the river of forgetting. It is not obligatory, only available. Some souls come to it, cup their hands, and drink, closing their eyes as certain sharpnesses dissolve. They do not become empty. they become spacious. Others choose not to drink yet, holding their memories like seeds they are not ready to plant. There is also a rarer spring that some speak of softly, a fountain whose water is called Mnemosyne by those who studied mysteries above, to drink and remember more truly. Both waters are honored. Choice remains a word that fits the mouth easily. In a sheltered grove, you glimpse reunions that do not perform themselves, but unfold the way dawn unfolds, without hurry, without the need to prove their joy. A mother meets a son and touches his cheek as if confirming a story someone once told her. A pair of friends sit shoulder to shoulder, saying nothing, passing an imaginary cup back and forth, because the gesture is a shared road between them. Lovers meet and do not ask for explanations. They accept what the underworld accepts, that time is a braid, and that their thread has found theirs again. And yet, you also see solitude that is not loneliness. A man sits beneath a poplar, knees drawn up, eyes on some internal horizon. He is not brooding. He is settling. Perhaps above, he was always interrupted. Perhaps here, the act of completing a thought is the feast he longed for. No one disturbs him. Respect here is simple. Attention without demand. A path of polished stone leads from the meadow back toward the gates, and you see, to your surprise, that not all movement is one way. Some souls, after long counsel and long rest, after learning and unlearning and learning again, rise. They pass Cerberus, who sniffs them with all three heads and seems satisfied. They touch the gate with a palm, leave the trace of their warmth upon its cool surface, and are gone. Not vanished, but translated, like a word finding its correct meaning in another tongue. Whether they go to the isles beyond Elysium, or return to the living world in another form, or join the work that keeps the gates wise, you do not know. You do not need to know. Hope here is quiet and confident. It does not need outcomes. It trusts in continuations. At the judges' hall, you are invited to sit among the listeners. A woman tells of a city she governed, not of its battles, but of the day she decided to leave the palace and walk the market without attendants. She describes the weight of a fig in her hand, the way a child reached for the fruit and drew back, unsure. She remembers giving the fig, taking another, and the market laughing together as if the act had set a small bone right. Rhadamanthus asks a single question. Was the laughter kind? The woman smiles. Yes. Aeacus nods, content. Minos leans back, eyes half closed, as if letting the answer settle into place like a stone into a wall. Later, a poor man speaks of stealing a piece of wool. He says the hunger was larger than his body, and his hands could not argue with it. He says he went back the next morning with an apology and a loaf. He says the neighbor broke the loaf and gave him half again. Minos does not ask why he stole. He asks what the bread tasted like. Like a hand I could hold, the man answers, surprised at his own words. The judges share a glance that is not approval, not disapproval, simply recognition of a truth shaped correctly. You notice the economy of mercy here. It is not cheap, not sloppy. It accounts for what happened and for what could yet happen. A soul who harmed many is not excused by a single tear, and a soul who stumbled is not condemned for failing to fly. Measures are taken, but the measuring stick is human proportion. Did you become more yourself over time? Did you let love teach you its habits? Did you learn how to set down what you were not meant to carry? In the distance, the Elysian light shifts, and from it floats a song you know without having learned it. A low chant of shared work. You can make out a harvest that is never frantic, a regatta without winners, a theater where every seat is the best seat, because the play is for everyone or for no one. It is difficult to tell the difference, and no one tries to. The dead here do not rehearse their greatness. They practice their gladness. The light of Elysium does not glare. It settles on shoulders like a shawl. The deeper shadow murmurs too, and what it murmurs is not suffer, but mend. The underworld is an artisan's workshop. Here a warp was too tight. Here a weft was dropped. Here a thread was pulled in anger, and now careful hands, guided by the judge's assignments, work the loom back toward a pattern that holds. You think of a pot you once broke and mended with pitch. The crack remained, but the vessel held water again, and the crack, bright and honest, became part of its beauty. You begin to understand the collective character of this place. The underworld is not a warehouse for souls. It is a commons. Learning is shared, and so is rest. When someone remembers a song, they teach it. When someone remembers a kindness, they practice it until it becomes a habit again. When someone must visit the deeper places, others wait for them at the edge, not to judge, but to accompany them back when the work is done. Even Cerberus participates in this life of attention. Sometimes he lifts one head and listens to a particular path, as if counting the footsteps of someone overdue. Sometimes all three heads sleep with their muzzles touching, and the gates purr with their dream. You ask quietly how long one stays here. The answer arrives in the form of a gesture, a hand opening, palm up. As long as it takes for a story to tell itself true, no longer. Some stories are long, not because they are complicated, but because they are dear. Some are short, because the shape is simple when seen from the right distance. No one presses you to hurry your understanding. Time, which was a boss above, becomes a servant here. As the day that is not a day moves forward, you notice another rank of figures. Guides who are not judges and not guards. They are ordinary souls who have learned the paths well and walk them with newcomers. A woman who knows 100 ways to soften sorrow with a proverb and a smile. A youth who has discovered the precise spot where the river's edge sounds like a mother humming. A man whose joy is to stand beside the Lethe and tell the hesitant that forgetting pain is not betraying love. They do not preach. They keep company. It is enough. You wander back toward the meadow, and the asphodels seem to lift their faces as if in greeting. The air is steady and cool, the fragrances of earth and ash and clean water settling around you, the way a cloak settles around shoulders just as the evening begins. You feel the presence of the many, their lives a quilt of bright patches and quiet cloth, stitched together by use and story. Here, the great and the humble are fabric to each other. A king's story lines the inside of a shepherd's coat. A potter's rhythm steadies the king's heartbeat. Whatever you were above, you are companionship here. You sense, too, that this world below is not a denial of the world above, but its reflection corrected for glare. Up there, noise could drown truth. Down here, truth has a chance to speak in a low voice and be heard. Up there, wealth could disguise hunger. Down here, hunger is met without shame. Up there, some doors were closed by fear. Down here, the doors are tended by a dog with 3 patient heads, and fear loses the trick of startling itself. When at last the hush from the judge's hall drifts over you again, it feels like evening wind. Somewhere, a decision is being shaped, and somewhere else, a reunion is beginning, and somewhere else, A lone figure leans over the black water, not to peer in fear, but to watch their reflection settle into a calm they never knew. You take another breath. In. The scent of asphodel, mineral, a hint of smoke. Outside, the sound of the river, the whisper of many feet, the soft, endearing rumble of Cerberus dreaming at his post. Here, in the social heart of the underworld, you understand the promise folded inside the terror that tales once told, that in death, the world is not emptied of meaning, but organized by it, that judgment is not a hammer, but a lantern, that guardians are not monsters, but listeners, that punishment, when it must be, is repair, that reward, when it is given, is not a throne, but a field to walk, where every step makes a music of its own. And above all, that everyone, kings, beggars, heroes, thieves, stands in the same soft light, equal in the one way that finally matters, the willingness to become true. You turn your face, once more, toward the path that led you here. It is quieter now, as if the steps of those behind you have slowed to match your breathing. The gates rest in their strength. The dog rests in his care. The judges rest in their listening. The meadow rests in its bloom. And you rest inside a world where the many have become one another's shelter. Breathe. Let the collective hush hold you. Here, the city of the dead teaches the living lesson the living always suspected, that we are not measured by height or noise, but by how gently we hold what is next. You stand within the hush of the underworld and begin to sense that what you are seeing is not only a place, but a language, a grammar built from breath and memory. The ancients would have called that breath Psyche, not a grand blazing soul, but the simple life breath that leaves the lips and becomes a whisper. In Greek, the word for breath and the word for soul meet. Dying is described as exhaling. And so the soul is what remains of a person's exhale, tender, lighter than the body, capable of carrying story across a river. For the Greeks, the way here mattered. A body washed, wrapped, sung over, a coin placed in the mouth or on the tongue for the ferryman, a token not of bribery, but of belonging, a sign that the living remembered their dead and would keep remembering. Hermes Psychopompos, Hermes the guide, was imagined as the first companion on the road, not a judge, but a gentle escort, the god of crossings helping with the greatest crossing of all. At the gates, the friendly enormity of Cerberus kept order. Deeper in, a more careful listening waited. Minos, Rhadamanthus, Aeacus, not executioners, but listeners who set each story down where it could continue in wisdom. If you asked a poet from the time of Homer what Hades was like, he might have said, dim, a land of asphodel, where most souls live as shades. Not torment, not paradise, but a quieting. Later, thinkers and mystery cults thickened the picture. The Orphics whispered of purification and return, of two springs, Lethe for forgetting and Mnemosyne for remembering, and of words a soul might carry like a lantern to find the kinder path. At Eleusis, worshippers of Demeter and Persephone enacted a ritual of loss and return so powerful that even centuries later, people spoke of it as things seen, things heard, and a hope that softened the fear of death. Burials bore lakithoi, white oil flasks, painted with scenes of parting that looked like meetings, because for the Greeks, to honor the dead was to protect the living, and to grieve was to belong. These stories were not blueprints of a terrain. They were maps of feeling. The Styx wasn't only a river. It was the binding of promise itself. Even the gods swore by it. Elysium wasn't only reward, it was a way of saying that joy and craft and goodness do not disappear. Tartarus wasn't a theater of horror. It was a workshop where the world's badly knotted threads might be carefully unpicked and woven again. Between them lay the meadow, where most people, not wicked, not saintly, simply human, could wander, listen, remember, and be remembered. When you lift your gaze across cultures, you see how other peoples tended the same questions with their own care. To the west and south, along the Nile's long intelligence, the Egyptians imagined the Duat, a night country through which the sun itself sailed each evening to be reborn. Death, for them, was not silence, but a journey of passages. The heart, not the brain, was the house of the person. In the hall of Ma'at, the heart was weighed against a feather, not to humiliate, but to measure balance. Anubis, jackal-headed and gentle-handed, supervised the scale. Thoth recorded, "At the center, Osiris sat not as a terror, but as one who has himself died and returned, a king who understands. If the heart was heavier than truth, the devourer Ammit ended the story. If the scales balanced, the dead moved into the field of reeds, a shimmering echo of Egypt itself, all canals and harvest and shade, where work became glad labor. Because the heart had to be weighed, the heart had to be kept. The body was preserved with such tenderness that even bread and beer were made in the tombs, as if the dead might get hungry on their way. There were Ushapti, little helper figures, ready to take on chores so the person could rest or rejoice. And most of all, there were names, painted, carved, sung. A name spoken kept a life from the second death of being forgotten. The Egyptian world teaches you the underworld's first great lesson, that remembrance is nourishment. To speak a name is to feed a soul. To the north and west, the Romans largely adopted the Greek topography, Orcus, Pluto, Dispater, but braided it with their own household loyalties. The Manes, the kindly dead, were fed with grain and wine in the yearly parentalia, a festival of visiting and tidying and speaking to the departed, as one would speak to elders in a quiet courtyard. The Lairs, household guardians, watched over thresholds. The Lemures, restless dead, were soothed in the Lemuria, with midnight rites of beans cast over the shoulder and words spoken to send trouble on its way. Roman poets walked the Greek map, but traced new paths. In Virgil's telling, the hero descends bearing a golden bow, sees Tartarus busy with the mending of great harms, and watches souls drink from Lethe to be made ready for new lives. For the Romans, the afterlife did not only comfort, it reinforced pietas, the web of duties that kept family, city, and gods in right relation. 3 cultures, 3 geographies of the unseen, and under them, the same human work. To domesticate fear without lying to it. To bind communities with rituals that dignify grief. To teach children what matters through stories that are harder to forget than lectures. You begin to notice how each myth answers a practical need. The coin of Charon, a memory device that says, "We will not abandon you." The judges, a way to encourage fairness even when no one is watching. The fields of Elysium and reeds, a promise that virtue is not futile. The punishments below, a reminder that actions have consequences that outlast applause. Lethe and Mnemosyne, a wisdom about healing, that some pains need softening, while some truths must be held close. The rituals above, washing, anointing, singing, carrying, guide the living hands so the living hearts can follow, step by step, through the first bewildering days. Philosophers tried to make these intuitions articulate. Some said the soul is breath refined. Others said it is number and harmony. Others said it is a spark that longs to rejoin a greater fire. But even the philosophers, for all their arguments, knew that rituals speak a language reason cannot. A man who pours wine on a grave learns with his hands that love survives the body. A woman who sews a shroud learns with her fingers that care is still possible and therefore meaning is still possible. People who gather to tell a story about the house of Hades, the Duat, or the realm of Aeacus learn with their voices that the dead remain in the grammar of the living. If you listen more closely, the myths also teach time. In one register, time is a line: birth, youth, age, death. And the underworld is a terminus. In another, time is a circle. Persephone descends, the fields sleep. Persephone rises, the fields wake. The sun dies into the west and is reborn in the east. The dead sleep and perhaps return by the same arc. In yet another, time is a braid. A person's acts wind through a community and keep moving after the person's breath stops, tightened in some places, loosened in others, but still binding. The myths do not ask you to choose a single shape. They invite you to feel all three at once: line, circle, braid, and to live as if your thread matters to the weave. And then there is fear. Not the fear of pain. That is for doctors and friends to ease. But the fear of erasure. The fear that your small goodness will vanish like smoke. That your mistakes will be the only story left. The underworld legends answer by relocating importance, not in the size of your shout, but in the habits you taught your hands. In these stories, the judges do not ask whether you were acclaimed. They ask whether you kept faith with the small tasks of being human: hospitality, truthfulness, proportion, care. Egypt weighs the heart not for achievement, but for lightness, for how little it pressed on others. Rome sends you to greet the ancestors, and then back to the table to share bread. Greece lets you wander a meadow until your story can be told quietly and well. Why did people make such myths? Because grief needed furniture, chairs to sit in, lamps to light, paths to follow, a dog at the door, a judge who listens, a river that moves at the speed of breathing. Because children needed pictures that could hold the weight of a parent's absence without cracking. Because the powerful needed limits and the powerless needed dignity. Because the living needed to know that death is not a cliff but a shore, and that on that shore, order and kindness still hold. And how did these myths help people live? They made oaths matter. Swear by the Styx, and remember that breaking a promise makes you smaller. They made burial a sacrament. Treat the dead with honor, and the city will be safer for the living. They taught measure. Do not hoard, do not boast, do not forget the stranger, for the judges are listening not later, but now, in the character you make. They gave seasons moral meaning. Let go when it is time to let go. Return when it is time to return. Accept that loss and renewal share a doorway. They made memory a daily practice. Pour a little wine. Say the name. Fix the step. Mend the jar. Feed the hungry. This is how we keep each other from the second death. You notice how softly this knowledge enters you here. No commandments thunder. The river teaches with one sound. Steady. The dog teaches with 3 heads. Attention. The judges teach with their silence. Listen. The meadows teach with their flowers. Enough. Elysium teaches with its light, glad work. Tartarus, even Tartarus, teaches with its hidden labor, mend. And now, as the asphodels nod, and the air smells of clean stone and distant rain, one last thought rises like a small, kind star. In every culture, the underworld is not only about the dead, it is a mirror held up to the living. When you look into it, you do not see doom. You see instruction. Not the sort that scolds, but the sort that reassures. You have time, while you breathe, to become lighthearted, to keep faith, to offer bread, to set down what is not yours to carry, to learn the gentle arts that outlast stone. So let the myths work on you the way waves work on a shoreline, not all at once, but with patient revisions. Let them tidy your fears and set your priorities in order, as a careful hand arranges tools before beginning a craft. Let them teach you the art of being rememberable, which is only the art of being kind in ordinary ways. And then softly, a question, not a test, not a demand, just a place to rest your thoughts, like a head on a pillow. How would you like to be remembered? You follow the soft current of footsteps toward the hall you have only glimpsed from afar. The path under your feet is firm now, polished by passage, and the air takes on a listening quality, like a breath held kindly. Around you the asphodels bow, not in warning, but in recognition. This is the place where stories find their shape. At first, you mean to watch only. You plan to stand among the listeners and let the hush carry you. But the path has a way of guiding without pushing. A guide with patient eyes falls into step beside you. Not a judge, not a guard, simply one who knows the turns. No hurry, they say, in a voice like wind through reeds. When you're ready, the room will know. The idea comforts and unnerves you at once. How can a room know? And yet, here, everything knows in its own way. The gate knows arrivals. The dog knows intentions. The meadow knows footsteps. The river knows breath. The hall reveals itself by degrees. There are no doors to open, only a long colonnade breathing a cool, mineral calm. The light here is brightness without edge, like lamb's wool pulled thin. At the far curve, the 3 seats wait. Minos in the center, harbor still, harbor deep. Rhadamanthus to one side, exact, attentive. Aeacus to the other, solid as a boundary stone, the kind that keeps fields friendly. They are not elevated to rule over you. They are set back to see the whole field of what you bring. The guide touches your elbow. Listen first, they murmur. So you do. A woman speaks, her words small and clear as pins set into cloth. She tells of a jealous year and how she learned to stop feeding it. Rhadamanthus leans forward, not to challenge, but to ask the one question that makes the truth complete. Whom did it teach? The woman names her sister. Aeacus nods. Minos closes his eyes, as if the pattern has settled in the loom. Next, a man who once commanded many. He does not recount victories. He describes the day he sat with a boy who stuttered and waited, and waited, and waited until the sentence came like a bird landing. That was the bravest hour, he says, softly astonished. The hall agrees without applause. The understanding passes through it like clear water. Your turn does not arrive with trumpets. It arrives the way rain begins. A coolness touches your skin, and then there it is. The listeners ease to one side, making space as naturally as a flock shifts to win. Cerberus, far away at the gate, lifts one head. The gesture of a watchman, noting that a lamp has been lit on a new threshold. You stand where others have stood. Your hands, which once shook beneath the weight of a shield, are steady. The judges do not glare. They regard you as a craftsman, regards a tool kept long and well used, curious about its stories, its nicks, the way it fits the hand. Minos invites you with a tilt of his head. When you are ready, you begin, not with greatness. There is none to begin with, but with bread. A winter lean with rumor. You remember carrying half a loaf across a lane and setting it down without being seen. You remember being seen anyway, and the nod that passed between hunger and help, needing no words. You tell of a lie you told, and then couldn't sleep, how you returned at dawn and unspoke it. The embarrassment hot as coals, the relief cool as rain. You tell of anger, like a summer storm, loud, showy, and how you learned, once, to let it roll past without climbing into it. Rhadamanthus asks only once, whom did your small courage allow to keep theirs? The question lands with the elegant honesty of a plumb line. You answer the names you can, and then, embarrassed, you say, perhaps more than I knew. He nods, satisfied not in you, but in the answer's humility. Aeacus inquires about boundaries. Where did you end and others begin? You speak of times you kept your hands to yourself, not from coldness, but from respect. Of times you stepped forward because no one else did. You admit where you mistook silence for virtue and where you mistook noise for proof. He listens for proportion. Finding it, he relaxes, as a mason does when a stone seats flush. Minos waits until the thread of your telling is clean in the air. What did you love that made you gentler? The memories rise of their own accord. Your child's shy grin, your wife's needle-catching light, your father's story told badly and therefore perfectly, grapes so warm they tasted of sunlight itself, a cracked jar mended with pitch, useful again, bright along the wound. You speak, and as you do, your fear changes shape. It is no longer a judge behind you with a stick. It is a student beside you with a notebook open, grateful for anything that might teach. And yet, the underworld does not flatter. It sets contrasts the way a careful painter sets shadows to honor light. Beyond the colonnade, the murmur of Tartarus drifts in. Not spectacle, not screaming. Only the laboring breath of work that must be done where it began. You feel, as you felt before, the patience in it. The name Sisyphus crosses your mind unbidden, and you see, not with eyes, but with understanding. The arc of a body leaning into the known resistance, breath matched to stone, will match to rhythm. It is not theater, it is repair. Then the hint of Tantalus, not frenzy, not torment, as you were told by hungry gossip, but lessons in slowness and savor. The reach corrected into the cup. The mouth taught gratitude one quiet sip at a time. Even here, you sense, mercy does not look away. It looks closely, and looking is its mercy. On the other side, like a sea wind through linen, the Elysian light moves the air. It carries no promise of thrones, only fields of work that feel like rest, a ship gliding without the ache of oars, a chorus practicing joy until joy needs no practice, a carpenter shaping a beam with a plane that purrs. The contrast is not a threat, it is a clarifier. Where your steps will fall depends not on a single day of glory or shame, but on the habit your days taught your hands. The questions cease. The hall holds you in its listening. You feel the weight of your life, not heavy, not light, simply honest, settle into your ribs like a bird just come to perch. Minos speaks first, his voice the temperature of clean water. You kept faith with small things. It is not a compliment. it is a measurement. Rhadamanthus. When you failed, you learned. He is not praising. He is placing a tile where it completes the mosaic. Aeacus. Your boundaries were human-shaped. A gate has been tended. A path stays safe. You wait for the thunderbolt that the old stories promised and find instead a practice so simple it feels like a homecoming. The judges confer with a glance, but the glance is an entire craft. The weight of many lives measured against the thread of yours, the pattern fit to the cloth. Elysium, says Minos, not as reward, but as direction, the next wise step in the road you have made by walking. Not because you were great, Rhadamanthus adds, but because you became kind and are likely to continue. Aeacus gestures, palm open. There is work there you will love, and therefore do well. No gavel falls, no splendid trumpet. The room breathes out, and with it your body releases a tightness you did not know it sustained. The guide at your side bows, first to the judges, then to you, as if acknowledging a craftsman's admission to a guild. Outside the hall, the air warms by a single, merciful degree. Cerberus watches you pass. One head flicks an ear in the indolent approval of a hound, noting that all is in order. The chain at his neck lies slack. Duty here is confidence, not suspicion. You touch your palm lightly to his middle brow, an old, foolish human habit, and feel nothing but the steadiness of a keeper. He accepts the gesture as if it is precisely the right amount of affection for this place. The path to Elysium is not a stairway. It is a slope so gentle you might think you are walking on level ground. The light ahead does not glare. It arrives, the way dawn arrives in a room with thin curtains. The scent shifts, grain warmed by sun, laurel rubbed between fingers, the salt of sea carried far inland by a wind that has no hurry. On either side of the path, a few figures move in the other direction, souls heading back toward the meadow, or toward the hall, or toward the gate to tend someone else's crossing. They nod as you pass with the friendliness of neighbors who know the road and are glad to see it used. No one asks why you were sent. Your face already answers. Not pride, not surprise. Relief tuned to gratitude. A low arch marks the threshold, carved not with victories, but with tools. A lyre, a stylus, a spade, a plane, a needle, a steering oar. As you step beneath it, you feel. Not a leap, not a shock, only an alignment, as if your bones have remembered their favorite posture. The first thing you notice is the sound. Work that sings softly to itself. A loom speaks in even phrases. A flute tests notes until they place themselves in the right order and then wanders happily among them. Laughter occurs the way water answers stone, little ripples where two people meet. No audience, no performance, only a rhythm shared because it pleases the hands. Someone offers you bread. It is warm in the middle and still crisp at the edge. It tastes not of achievement, but of enough. Someone else pours water that has the slightest memory of mint. Your shoulders, which did not know they were lifted, lower. You are not asked what you did to earn this. You are asked, gently, what would you love to practice? The question is not about occupation. It is about the form of your gladness. You answer before you know you can. Mending. A cracked jar flashes through your mind. The pitch, the patience, the return to use. The one who asks smiles. Then you will find friends quickly. They are right. Within a few steps, you see a bench with the tools you know by touch. A small knife for trimming edges, a bone burnisher, a pot of resin warmed in the kind of coals that never scorch. Beside it sits a woman whose hands bear the maps of long work. She slides aside to make space, as if she has been waiting precisely for your arrival. "Show me how you did it above," she says, "and I will show you what I learned below." There is no test in her tone, only the excitement of a shared craft. You sit. The bench meets you like a familiar friend. A shallow bowl awaits its seam. The resin has the particular, honest smell of trees telling their story. You place the shard, turn it until it clicks into the one spot where it wants to live, and in that click, 100 small anxieties fall quiet. You breathe. In. The thread of smoke from the coals rises steady. Outside, the underworld seems to breathe with you, exactly as slowly, exactly as kindly. Around you, Elysium opens without edges. A boy learns to plane wood, not to build a palace, but because the curl that falls from the beam delights him. A singer hums with her ear pressed lightly to a cedar board to feel the tone in her bones. Two old friends carry an invisible amphora down an invisible road, laughing at the memory of how heavy it once was. A runner tests his stride along a path that rises and falls like a wave. He runs not to arrive, but to be the kind of body that can run. A mother shows a daughter how to braid hair, and the braid holds not because of force, but because of the patient repetition that makes strands agree. At the edge of your sight, water gleams in a way that tells you it is sea, not the chaotic edge of the world, but the companionable breadth of it. Boats skim there as if thought itself could carry them over. On a low hill, a group reads together, pausing often, not to argue, but to let a sentence expand until it reveals its bedrock. In the warm middle of all this, you continue to mend. The work invites a silence that is not absence of sound, but presence of attention. The seam closes. You smooth it. You leave it visible. The bright honesty of the crack, a signature of both breaking and care. The woman beside you nods, pleased. "Useful," she says, which here is the highest praise. Between tasks, an elder strolls by. You recognize him by something other than his face, the way he moves through air as though time were his apprentice. He stops, watches your hands, and says, "We learn at last what we meant all along." You are not sure whether he speaks to you or to himself. It does not matter. The sentence goes where it needs to go and rests there. As the day that is not a day wears its soft path around the sky, a warmth gathers, not heat, just light collecting on surfaces. The curve of a bowl, the span of a shoulder, the arch of a doorway that frames more sky. Your breathing finds the evenness of oar strokes long practiced. The river is far behind you now, and yet its lesson remains. Steady carries farther than strong. You think of Sisyphus again, not with pity, not with dread, but with a kinship you did not expect. His hill is his teacher. Your bench is yours. You think of Tantalus too, and realize that here nothing is withheld, and therefore nothing has to be seized. The cup comes when it is time. The bread breaks when hands are ready. At a pause, you turn, and the Elysian light greets you squarely for the first time. It is not a blaze. It is a warmth that remembers your name the way good bread remembers the oven. In it, you feel every hurried apology you ever made soften into a promise kept. Every careful joke you told to ease another's fear find its echo. Every small mercy you extended return as the exact size of comfort you need now. The guide reappears, not to check, not to correct, but to keep you company at the moment when the journey's escalation must become release. Do you see? they ask, and their hand makes a small, inclusive arc that takes in the fields, the benches, the boats, the slow chorus of human gladness. Nothing is wasted. Not the crack, not the coin, not the breath. Your chest loosens further, an inner knot finally learning how to untie itself. The tension you carried into the hall dissolves the way salt disappears into warm water. Not erased, but made part of something larger and kind. The verdict you feared turns out to be simply a sentence added to your story. Continue well. You finish the bowl. It sits in your hands with the satisfying weight of enough. You set it among others on a low shelf. The shelf looks like a row of small moons. The woman reaches for another shard and places it before you. Not a demand, a gift. You smile, and your smile answers hers. Yes. Around you, Elysium keeps breathing. A flute reaches its note and then drifts into a silence more articulate than music. A breeze touches your face with the temperature of sunlight that has decided to become shade. The world, above and below, seems arranged to let you sleep and wake in the same gesture. Eyes closing on effort, opening on ease. If you look back toward the far, dim edge where the judge's hall would be, you do not see judgment anymore. You see a threshold tended by 3 good listeners. If you look toward the gate, you do not see danger. You see a dog doing the old, faithful work that frees everyone else to do theirs. If you look at your hands, you do not see stains or scars as records of failure. You see a collection of instructions, learned slowly, made gentle by use. The escalation that brought you here has done its work. The verdict has become a path. The path has become a practice. The practice, held lightly, has become peace. The light deepens. Gold softened by distance, warmth without demand. Someone nearby hums a melody you knew as a child and forgot for years. Somehow, you remember all the words. The bench supports your back, as if it were carved to your measure. The air tastes faintly of laurel and clean water. You breathe. In, outside, a little slower still. Elysium does not ask you to sleep. It makes sleep possible, the kind that is simply trust, taking a long, slow breath. You set your tools aside. You let your hands rest, palms open, as if to show the day that you have nothing to hide and nothing to grip. Somewhere, the sea answers itself with a gentle, repeating hush. Here, in the soft radiance of the fields, the story that rose into tension and fear settles into its final movement, a harmonious, tender release. The work ahead is the kind you love. The companions nearby are the kind you keep. The light around you is the light you have sought without knowing it. You close your eyes, not to leave, but to arrive more fully. The verdict glows inside you like an ember that does not burn down. And in that glow, every breath you take becomes exactly what the underworld has been teaching since you first stepped onto the shore. Steady, gentle, enough. You sit with the warmth of Elysium on your skin and feel how the day, that is not a day, loosens its bright hold. The bench remembers your shape. The tools are quiet in their place. The seam you mended cools beneath your fingers until it is simply part of the bowl's truth. Around you, voices soften into murmurs, then into the thinner thread of whistles and humming, then into the fine, nearly invisible line between sound and the promise of sound. Here, where judgment has already become direction, your thoughts open like hands. A small realization moves through you with the certainty of tide. Life was always a moment, and death is a crossing. Not a cliff, not a vanishing, but a ferry between shores that have been calling to each other since the first breath met the first morning. The myths gave the crossing a name and a shoreline. Your body gives it rhythm. In, outside, and again. You understand now what the elders meant when they spoke in proverbs you once thought too simple to be true. Darkness is just another kind of silence. Not a threat. A room with the lamps lowered, where voices rest between sentences and still belong to the same story. You look back, not with longing, but with clarity. The world of heat and noise, of seasons and errands, of salted bread and olive shade lies behind you and mysteriously within you. It was never perfect. It was often enough. In the memory light of this place, you see how the common gestures did the heavy lifting. A cup poured for a guest without counting, the mending of a crack instead of hiding it, the choice to let an insult pass like weather. You see, too, how fear tried to persuade you that only large acts matter. But even fear, you suspect, was only a poor teacher repeating the lesson it had learned. Speak loudly or not at all, while the river taught the better one. Move steadily, and everything that needs carrying will be carried. Breathe. Feel how the air in Elysium is shaped for breathing, as if it were woven to fit your lungs. In the exhale, a little more of the world's insistence slips away. In the inhale, the underworld's steadiness arrives. Cool stone, clean water, the light weight of laurel on the fingers. Each breath is a seam closed without force. Now let your thoughts walk home to the present day, to the room where a living body is listening. Imagine the quiet there, the soft rectangle of a window holding the night, the gentle machinery of a heater, or the faint tick of cooling metal, the domestic planets of book, glass, lamp. Maybe there is a phone, face down now, its bright world turned to sleep. Maybe there is a list on the table, calls to make, tasks to finish, worries lined up like small cups someone forgot to put away. Let them be. They do not vanish. They wait. In the morning, they will still be cups. Tonight they can be empty. The old stories are not far from you. They live in modern pockets with surprising comfort. Your keys on the hook, rites of threshold, your nightly rinse of a plate, care for the small temple of a kitchen, the walk you take to quiet your thoughts, pilgrimage, the message you send to say, made it home, an offering to the household gods of distance and return. You do not need cypress trees or marble halls to belong to the long companionship of the living and the dead. You need what you already have, a name to answer to, a door to tend, a table to set, a memory to keep, a kindness to practice, and practice until it is muscle and then air. Let the underworld show you your day from the soft side. The meeting you dreaded, merely a crossing. The street that felt too noisy, merely a river wearing a city's clothes. The person who lifted your mood with a sentence they didn't know you needed. Hermes in a contemporary jacket, guiding you between small rooms of trouble toward a better doorway. The fatigue that sits at the base of your skull. Sisyphus's hill in miniature, inviting you not to push harder, but to discover the breathing that makes hard work honest instead of punishing. You wonder, as the ancients did, why we make myths. Here, with the judge's kindness behind you and the dog's quiet duty at the gate, the answer feels simple enough to trust. Because we need furniture for the invisible, a chair for grief, a lamp for courage, a table where memory can eat with us without taking the largest portion, a door we can open and close when it's time to rest. The story of Hades builds that furniture out of attention. The Egyptian heart on a scale builds it out of balance. The Roman rite builds it out of duty, braided with affection. You, in your room, build it out of habit. The glass of water by the bed, the covers drawn smooth. A sentence you tell yourself not to win, but to anchor. I did what I could today. I will do what I can tomorrow. Let the thought turn once more, slowly. Darkness is just another kind of silence. Not empty, not hostile, spacious. In that space, the parts of you that have been standing all day may finally sit. The parts that have been speaking may put a hand on their own shoulder and grow quiet without apology. The parts that have been watching for danger may hand the watch to Cerberus for the night and trust that 3 good heads will do what one anxious mind could not. Breathe. In through the nose. Hold the top of the breath as if balancing a small bowl. Out through the mouth, a thread of air that doesn't break. Again. Feel how the bed lifts you as the boat lifted you, how the pillow receives your skull with the exact patience of the ferryman's plank. The past hour has been a descent that was also a return. What you found below is not foreign. It is the inside of what you already live. Let images settle like feathers. The meadow of asphodels, a pale tide of petals, the judge's crescent, 3 chairs listening as if listening itself were a craft. The far shimmer of Elysium, where work hums at a human volume and nothing is wasted. The deeper workshop of Tartarus, hidden, careful, mending the world where it tore. None of these demand attention now. They keep watch the way good neighbors keep watch, near enough to help, far enough to let you sleep. And now, a quiet invitation, the kind a friend offers with palms up and eyes soft. Consider how you wish to be remembered. Not the statue version, the kitchen version, the after-dinner version, the do the dishes when it isn't your turn version. Perhaps you wish to be remembered for making room, at tables, in conversations, in lanes of traffic and lines of thought. Perhaps for telling the truth in a way that left no bruise. Perhaps for the bowl you mended and used another 10 years, and for the crack that taught your household the shape of care. Perhaps for your laugh, which arrived like good weather. Perhaps only for your steady presence, how you stood with someone so they could find their own courage. Hold that wish lightly. Let it perch, small and warm, where the sternum meets breath. Do not chase it into vows. Let it teach you a single habit for tomorrow. A way to pour, a way to pause, a way to say I hear you without needing to win. The myths do not confiscate your life, they tune it. The river does not erase your footsteps. It learns their rhythm and returns it to you at a speed that does no harm. The light in Elysium leans toward evening, which is to say it thickens rather than dims. Edges blur in mercy. The seam in the bowl, once bright, now glows only as much as the rest of the clay. Your hands, which wanted so much to be useful, discover that rest is also a use. If you must set a guard at your door, let it be the 3-headed dog, tail thumping once, twice, before sleep takes even him. He will keep the small nocturnal anxieties from scratching at the threshold. He will know the difference between a true knock and wind. Return now to the bed where your body waits. Feel the map of you find the map of the mattress. Heel, calf, thigh, hip, shoulder, elbow, wrist, spine like a river with its own headwaters. Your face smooths, the tiny muscles around the mouth and eyes loosening as if someone had finally remembered to oil the hinges. Your jaw discovers that it does not have to hold the day shut. Your tongue, the old keeper of coins and confessions, rests. Hear what remains in the room, the smallest sounds that mean home. A distant car becomes a ship on the Lethe, passing without wake. A neighbor's door becomes a gate tended by a patient keeper. Pipes in the wall are the underground rivers, talking to each other in discreet voices. The world above is not loud tonight. It is merely present. It promises to continue without you for a few hours, which is a kindness. If a thought arrives, unfinished, bright, insisting, imagine writing it on a shard and placing it on the workbench of morning. The resin is not warm yet. It cannot be mended now. The shard will wait. The workshop of daylight will open on time. The judges of to-do and not yet done can sit in their 3 chairs and listen then. For now, the verdict is rest. Let the poem of sleep begin saying itself through you. Each line is a breath. Each breath is a small boat. Each boat carries a piece of the day to the far shore where night keeps a shelf for such things. Sound recedes. The loom hums a few paces farther away. The flute lowers its voice. The water's hush blends with the pulse in your fingertips until both are one sound, so soft it is mostly promise. Light becomes texture, not brightness, but warmth arranged over surfaces. A woven calm, a shawl of dusk. You may think, briefly, of those who have crossed before you. Their names spoken under someone's breath. Their chairs still at someone's table. You may picture them wandering the soft fields, or being weighed with a feather, or receiving beans thrown kindly into the dark to send them peace. This does not sadden you. It gives you the feeling that the house is bigger than you thought, with more rooms, and that someone has already turned down the bed in the one meant for you. The last task is the easiest. Let go in increments. Release the feet. Release the hands. Release the stomach's watchfulness. Release the throat's readiness to speak. Release the brow's habit of holding weather. Let the mind do what the river did. Receive, carry, smooth. If a shore rises under your boat, it is only the shore of deeper rest. You may step onto it or simply float nearby. Either way, you are kept. The myths keep watch. The dog keeps watch. The gate keeps watch. The field keeps watch. You do not have to. Here, at the end of telling, you are not empty. You are quiet, not extinguished, dim to tenderness, not cut off, carried. Darkness gathers not as a curtain, but as a blanket warmed by the last light it held. Darkness is just another kind of silence you murmur once, and the words know where to go. They settle in the room like friendly weight. Breathe, long, gentle, enough. And in the soft country, between waking and sleep, where boats nudge their moorings and lamps bloom low, you feel the whole story fold itself around you like a careful hand, and you drift, soundless, safe, into the endless, warm light that looks like night from here. Breathe in, gently. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, soft, 2. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last time, in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Now, let the room grow quiet around you, like a shoreline after sunset. Silence, boat, river, soft shore. These are the only things you need to carry. See the little boat waiting. No rush. No oars to lift. It comes when you breathe in. It glides when you breathe out. In, the boat draws near. Out, the boat moves forward. In, it rocks once. Out, it steadies. The river is slow and certain. It sounds like your pulse when you are calm. It knows the way. even when your thoughts do not. You don't have to steer. You only have to float. Silence. Boat. River. Soft shore. Let your jaw loosen. Let your tongue rest heavy and warm. Let your shoulders melt down and back. Let the small muscles around the eyes grow smooth, as if someone were drawing gentle shadows over them with a kind hand. In. Cool air. Hold. A moment that doesn't ask for anything. Out. Warm air, carrying what you don't need. Hear how the room and the river begin to agree with each other. The faintest sounds folding into the hush folding into your breath folding into the boat's slow rhythm. You are being carried. That is enough. If a thought arrives, set it on the riverbank like a smooth stone. You can pick it up in the morning. For now, empty hands. For now, easy water. The night widens like calm water under a moon you don't need to see. Your body becomes shoreline, heels heavy like small stones, calves settling like sand, hips as quiet as anchored wood, hands open, palm to sky. The heart is a soft lantern. It does not need to shine far. Only here. Only now. Silence. Boat. River. Soft shore. Let the words fall farther apart, like steps that lengthen as the path grows gentle. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The boat kisses the bank. Barely a sound. The sand is cool and welcoming. You step without effort, or you don't step at all. Either way, you are home. Let the breath become the tide that smooths the edges of the day. With every exhale, more quiet. With every inhale, more ease. If you still hear the world, hear it as distant oars, lifting and falling somewhere kind. If you still see light, see it as cloth warmth, not bright, only near. And now, the blessing for the road you take with your eyes closed. May this night be gentle. May your dreams bring you peace. And may a small light glow for you, even in the dark. Breathe once more, as slowly as the river moves. Let the boat become the bed become the shore become sleep.